all today. As Laura Lee mentioned, I own a talent alignment firm. So I work with organizations of various sizes in helping them align talent so they can increase their effectiveness, stay competitive, live out their growth plans if we're speaking our emerging leaders language. So I'm excited about this conversation because it's an issue that seems to be on the forefront of leaders' minds, no matter the size or the industry of the organization, that attracting and retaining talent in today's market with all the change of both generations, the use of technology, all of that happening. So as Laura Lee mentioned, I certainly have opinions and ideas that I'm going to be sharing, but the best call is to hear from you all as well. I don't think any of us knows everything, so it'd be great to have your participation. And as Laura Lee mentioned at the beginning of our call, if you do have any questions, let's just have this be kind of a, like Laura Lee said, just a nice roundtable discussion. So are there any, I guess I'm kind of curious, given the number of people on the call, I'm kind of curious about the industry or the types of businesses that are involved in our conversation this morning. That might be helpful just so we can direct our focus. So could we go through an introduction, Laura Lee?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great idea. So yeah, let's just say, our names, where our business is, where we're calling from, and if there's any, specific question that you'd like addressed today.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool, great. Nicole, would you like to
start out? We'll just shout out. Okay, I'll
go for it.
My name is Nicole Rapollo, and I'm part of the Interise group in Newark. My business is in Stamford, Connecticut. I own a non-medical home care agency. Okay, so I hire caregivers, and I'm well aware of the challenges in hiring that segment of the population, and we've got a good strategy in place for doing that. I'm looking to increase my office staff. And in the last 3 years, I've had marginal, at best, success in hiring. My first hire was what I call a desperate hire. My second hire was a desperate hire. My third hire was a disaster. My two hires that I really put a lot of energy into was a 50-50. This was my strategic hire, and one is still with me and one I had to let go. And I need to hire good office staff in order for me to take the business to the next level. So that's kind of my pain point for being here, and I'm hoping to get some good feedback.
Okay, great, thank you. You're not alone, Nicole. You're not alone. All right.
Yeah. How about Jane? Are you still there? Just don't forget to unmute yourselves, actually, great.
Hi, yeah. So I own a communications firm, which means we have a bunch of writers, editors, graphic designers, website developers, other types of IT people. And we've been around for 25 years, but AR hiring is always a pain point, no matter what. But so I've been relying on LinkedIn network often to hire, and we do a pretty good job with that. But the problem is, just trying to scale that.
Okay, so, great, thank you.
Challenging, because right now I'm handling the majority of the candidate sourcing and selection, and yeah, it's pretty hard to schedule this.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ideas around staff all of this.
Okay.
All
Great.
right.
Thanks.
Lance, would you like to go next?
My name is Lance Kimball. I'm located down in Tampa, Florida. I went through the course last year, and I own an appliance repair company. And so what I'd like to have some interest in is we basically have appliance technicians go to your home, and there's not a lot of them out there. And so what I've been doing is paying. So majority of the ones who work for me, we bring them in-house and train them. But I'm trying to look for methods of way of making sure it's a good fit for that candidate before I invest the money. You know, I don't know if aptitude tests or psychological tests that you can elaborate on that I can say, okay, well, this person would be a good fit long term, so I'm willing to invest the money into them. So that's kind of where I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay. Great. I made a note of that so we can cover that, Lance. Thank you.
Liana?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I entered a few minutes late. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I work, my company is Open Mind Strategy. We're in New York City. We're a research and brand strategy company. We are a small team. There are 5 of us. And so we find that chemistry is such an important part of the hiring process, yet in the interview process, we seem to always have great chemistry. Then when it comes to sort of like the day-to-day, it sort of fizzles out. We've also had many troubles with, interview candidates sort of saying all the right things. And then when we bring them on, they're just, falling short of all the things they said that they could do, or even like sharing writing samples as a part of the process. We believe that some people actually didn't write the things that they shared. And so just, maybe learning a bit about like the right questions to ask that might help indicate a little bit more of a realistic view of, who they are and what they're capable of doing might be quite helpful.
Yeah.
I'm also really interested in learning where we should be posting if we're putting a search out there, because we've been burned by, job search companies before, and it's really expensive and we can't really afford it. So kind of like, where should we be out there in the, job posting space?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Really good. Thank you. Again, not alone. One of the most top 5 common comments that I hear from people is, in the interview, we connected, we thought we were getting one thing. When they got in their seat, we saw something totally different. So,
right.
Yeah, doesn't make it any better, but you're not alone. We'll talk about that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. And let's see, Trey, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
So we have an IT company here in Mobile, Alabama, and we have around 19 employees. We've been in business since 1986, and really probably within the last year or two, we've been trying to come up with ways to grow, which of course has involved hiring new employees as well. So I second a lot of the questions that people are bringing up. One of my main questions as well would be making sure that we ask the appropriate questions to, ensure that we get the best fit for the particular positions that we're interested in. One of the other big things, I know that I've heard other people talk about this and we've never really implemented it here, but certain types of like personality tests and things of that nature, is there anything in particular that, has been used or could potentially be beneficial in that process as well to identify the best placement?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, Shar.
So Shar actually chatted, and he said his microphone isn't connecting. But he has a weed control business, has been in business since 2001 and is actively growing 20% a year. So is always in need of new technicians and office staff. Would like to improve his hiring process. For office, Indeed.com has been used, and for text, Craigslist.
Okay.
Sorry, Shar is a woman. I apologize. Thanks for the correction. So Shar also said that she does a 5-minute personality test using pictures from True Colors. So Trey, I'm not sure if you have used that before, but that's a interesting suggestion.
Okay.
That was called what again?
True Colors, TRU colors.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
And then Julie?
Yep.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm in Massachusetts, and we have a roll-off dumpster rental company. So we're almost always looking for drivers, delivery experts. It's a seasonal business, so it's difficult hiring full-time people because we don't offer full-time year-round. We don't do layoffs. So for 3 or 4 slow months, their hours get pretty much cut in half. So it's difficult to find the right person who can work, full-time in the summer and then be willing to work less in the winter. And we have a lot to offer here. We're a small, locally owned business, of course, but not all of what we offer is financial, if you will. We don't have benefits so much. We can't compete with if someone's doing deliveries for FedEx or some of those bigger companies as far as pay goes either. But we have growth potential here. We have employee incentives. So I'm trying to hire a couple of delivery experts. We've used Craigslist and Facebook lately, and we're getting a lot of candidates. And it's funny though, because lots of times I'll reach out to someone and say, hey, I'd love to have you come in for an interview, and then I can't reach them or you don't even know me back.
I can. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Why would you even send in your interest if you're not even going to respond back? If someone's saying, hey, I'd love to have you in for an interview, and then it's radio silence. So that kind of left me baffled. And then there's been a couple of guys that we've gotten through the whole hiring process, offering a job, and all of a sudden they're no longer interested, or you just don't hear back. So I don't know, different generations maybe, but it's been really tricky.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've done some work with transportation and delivery and drivers. And for some reason with drivers, it does seem like a lot of people never show up. But there are different things you can do on the front end. So you're having the right people to apply in the first place. So I made note of that. Thank you. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we have Kelly Fleedham from Minnesota.
Yeah. Oh, Kelly, I actually muted you. There,
Oh.
Kelly, you're unmuted if you want to just do a quick introduction.
Probably be, you know what? Really want this looked at today?
Okay. And Katie Krogan, it looks like, joined us as well.
Hi, yeah, I'm Katie Krogan from Sacramento, California. Just trying to get some basic information on hiring because I've hired a couple people who haven't worked out.
What kind of business do you have, Katie?
We're an IT company. We sell IT hardware and software to the state, as well as a managed service company who sells to small businesses.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, did we get everybody? Great. Okay, well, let's start it off here. And again, this can be interactive. So if you have questions or comments as we go along, feel free to jump in. But thanks for introducing and kind of sharing the types of businesses that you have, some places where you've been finding people, and then some of your challenges. I think, one thing to keep in mind when we're talking about talent and the right person's going to be different for each of your businesses, of course, and within your business, for each job, there's going to be a right person. So it might not be like across the board. And then sometimes it seems, we've all heard hire slow, fire fast. And sometimes when we're in, I think it was Nicole who said, in desperation, we can easily overlook some, what I would say are red flags with people. And also, it can be painful sometimes to hire when we have that need. And then this is like not really our work, but we're thrown into, now we have to do this too. And so that too can help us miss some red flags or not do what we would maybe normally do if we have more time. So one thing I like to start with is just to keep in mind that the reason why we want to really take time to find the right person to begin with is not just because it's so costly on the back end if there's attrition or they don't work out. It's also not because the whole idea of one bad apple can really affect the whole bucket. So one not right person does definitely affect the mood and the environment in which you and the rest of your team are working. Both true things, both costly in different ways, but also I think one of the key elements that we're focused on right talent is often forgotten or just missed, and that is it's statistically shown that right fit is more productive and up to 8 times more productive than just like a normal hire. And so when you're looking at doing more faster with less, that up to 8 times more productive person is really going to be a nice differentiator for you and also help just like live out your growth plan. So, like really 3 big reasons. Of course, this firsthand, but sometimes just like having it reiterated or thinking about why is this important in the first place. Those are the 3 big reasons, I think, why it does make a difference to really take time on the front end to figure out who is the right fit here. So then I would say in small businesses, the one piece that I often do not see being done is creating some tangible process around identifying what it is you need. And then the interview process, the hiring process, usually there's not a lot of tangible written down process around that. And I think that is a critical step for any sized business and any industry, is to first identify what is it that we really do need? What role do we need filled? So and really being clear about that on the front end. If you're not clear, then the people that you're talking to or looking for, there can't be clarity anywhere on the back end if you're not clear on the front end about not only the technical skill that you need someone to perform or the actual work that they need to do, the responsibilities they need to have, but I'm also referring to who is it that makes people successful in your business, including looking at you. What are your behavior traits, work styles, attributes, and are those what you need to hire? Because consistently, that's who's successful in your business. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
People aren't doing that piece. They're instead looking at, oh gosh, I need help. I'm going to hire someone to fill this spot, without really looking at, well, what do we really need for both technical skill, but underneath that waterline, the attributes, the intrinsic behaviors, the work style, the core values one has. If you're identifying that first for yourself, then you're fitting someone into that. And I would say don't just have it in your head, but write it down.
Write it down.
Write it down and create, I think it's a really helpful idea to create a tangible list. So you're not really using a job description. I mean, you could have a job description, of course, but when you're looking to fill a role, you're also writing down on like just a little checklist that you can use as you're screening and vetting candidates in the first place, or even beginning to talk about, this is the kind of role that we're looking for, the kind of person we're looking for. Do you know anyone? You know, even in that sourcing space, you're better able to verbalize and share, whether it's in a job posting or verbally with your network, what it is you want to see too. And then you can use that check sheet of technical skills, behavior traits, core values throughout your entire process. And that might be slightly different for the various roles within your organization. And that's okay that it is. So it's not necessarily a one size fits all. And I think in a small business, it's really
if we don't have a caregiver.
I think in a small business, it's really important to look at where are your critical players, and that's where you're investing your time. And you can even do a check with those people that are successful and your high producing, good team members. What are the attributes, work styles, behaviors that they're exhibiting? So you can kind of perfect your list as you're going along. Are people using a process or a list on the front end when you're thinking about the role that you want to fill? Is anyone doing that right now?
Well, this is Lance. I mean, the core values and work ethic and things you're talking about creating, the question is how do you in the interviewing process figure out that person has those characters you're wanting? That's been, that's where you hear the challenge is everybody says the right thing, you get them in the process, and then it's not working out correctly. And I agree with what you're saying on the writing part and I've even looked at what employees that I like what they do, their character. But it's a hard thing to figure out during the interview process. And that's where I don't know if there is a trick. I'd like to know a trick if there was.
Well, okay, so a couple of things. We'll just popcorn around here to address people's comments now, and then as the comments and questions that came in when we were introducing ourselves. So in the interview process, let's see, a couple of things. One is typically typically people that don't hire every day will start the interview with, here's our company, here's our job. Now tell me about you. And do you fit this? And I think if you flip that around, you'll be more successful. So I think about setting up the interview like this. Hello, so-and-so. This is what we're going to do today. I'm going to learn a little bit more about you. Then we're going to talk about our organization. Then we're going to talk about our job. We'll end in our action step. Okay, great. And then you're getting to ask them questions first. And my suggestion is to ask behavioral-based, open-ended questions. Tell me about a time when you, whatever the situation might be in your business that this person might encounter, and then you're just letting the silence be there so they can respond however it is that they respond. And then just listen to what it is they're saying instead of thinking about the next question. So you can have your questions written out so you can be present and you can just kind of pay attention to what it is you're hearing. But I would suggest asking open-ended behavioral-based questions. Have you ever had an experience where all of the electricity was off and there was a client coming in, and what would you do in that situation? Like you could create scenarios, you can just ask about anything that's related to the job that you're trying to fill. in an open-ended, what would you do with, have you ever had this experience? Tell me about it kind of way. And then just stop and listen to them. And then you don't have to respond. You could just keep it moving, keep asking the questions with your little list that you've created. Then as you're going through and listening, you can hear, okay, are they a self-starter? Did they answer the question in any way that I can see that they're a self-starter? That would they take ownership over the work? Do they take pride in their work? Do they have resourcefulness? Did they demonstrate that in anything that I heard? And you can just write on your list, either during or immediately after the interview. So you're capturing your initial experience with them. And you're not, like, more time doesn't necessarily serve you here because you begin to remember things incorrectly, just a human nature. So just capture it in writing so you know right away what's missing, what you learned, what you heard, and what you didn't. I think, you know, when you're interviewing and sometimes you're getting something different than what you experience, is like, we want people to be to like us and to be attracted to us and to be attracted to our business. So sometimes in that interview process, we're creating likability and we're having a fun, good conversation, but we're not getting the information that we really need to hear. And so asking those open-ended questions and using a check sheet can kind of help you stay on track. And it doesn't mean that you won't create likability there, but the job means more almost at every level if they have to work a little bit to get it. You know, if it's too easy to get, anybody could take that job. If anybody could get that job, it's not as thrilling, you know, so that's something to keep in mind. And then the more organized and process-oriented you are in the interview, the more good impression you're creating with that probably is what they're going to experience then inside your organization too. So you want to, when you're talking about, so then when you're talking about your business and your job, the other thing I see happen right there is sometimes businesses will talk about the ideal or where they're going in 3 years. They'll talk about their vision, forgetting that where their business is right now is what the job is right now. So sometimes then people will come in expecting that their job was going to be this, what you talked about in the interview, but when they come in, their job is really like, oh, this, not what I was expecting. So immediately my expectations are thrown, which doesn't have me feel good as a new hire. And then I'm always a little bit off. So then you have to work as the employer, you have to work to get them back on board so you're in the same place. And sometimes you can never turn that around. It will always be like the gap that just keeps getting wider, and you'll see it then in the performance. It'll come out in different ways because sometimes they don't even know what's going on, but that might be at the heart of what's happening. So be real, be honest with what they're going to experience. Because you want someone who's going to be excited for what it is and can then align with your vision and they're engaged to help you drive that forward. No, but knowing, eyes wide open, knowing what the situation is right now. So those are a couple of things about interview process. I think it's a really good idea to see somebody more than once, so more than one visit. I also think that if you're getting other people involved, which if you're a solo, I think it's a smart idea to get 1 or 2 other people involved who know you. Maybe it's your accountant that comes in a few hours a week to do your accounting, or some other kind of person that's involved with your business and knows you, that can have kind of a neutral, unbiased experience with that person to give you feedback on what it is they're seeing. That's a really helpful idea. And if you have enough people inside, then have other people get involved using the same formed checklist. So they're kind of ranking their experience with an individual in the same way. So you're comparing something tangible to tangible to tangible. So those are some thoughts around the interview process. What, is that helpful, or was I hitting on things that could be useful to you, or was I off the mark in some way here with what you were hoping to get in regard to the interview?
Julie said it's very useful. Yeah, I found that point about, you know, speaking honestly about the job rather than the vision. I found that really interesting because I think even in the curriculum, we talk about building staff engagement and retention through getting people on board with your vision, but maybe that, you know, the hiring process isn't necessarily where you need to gain that buy-in initially. So I thought that was really interesting because we do talk about the big vision of being a way to engage your existing staff. But you don't want them coming, and I've been hired. I remember being hired for jobs like this where I was like, oh great, I'm going to come into this, you know, company and start here. But then it takes a little, you come in and they sit you down at your desk and you're like, oh, this isn't what I expected. And it's hard to come back from that.
It is, yeah. Most hires don't work out because it's a mis-expectation or a miscommunication. And it's just hard to turn that around. If you can catch it right away, you can do it, but usually nobody says anything and you all think it's going to get better and it just never does. Yeah.
Is there anybody, just one, yeah, a lot of people have kind of had a little aha moment, I think, about, you know, being more thoughtful about asking the right questions, or even that kind of reverse process that you talked about instead of talking about the company and the job first. Yeah, so I think that was helpful.
Okay, great. And I kind of am a believer in that the true answer is in the third time you're saying it. So sometimes when I'm asking questions, I'm asking the same question, but just using different words and spaced out in different times. So I can really see, like, is somebody answering consistently? Because sometimes, you know, we all kind of have these canned, like, this is probably what you want to hear, so I'm going to say that first. So you want to get that out of the way, and then you want to ask some of those really pivotal questions or critical questions for you around core values and behavior traits. You want to ask questions again, spaced out, so you can, because every time you ask the same question but different words, you're getting the trueness of the answer. They're getting more comfortable. They've already got their canned responses out of the way, and now you're kind of getting to see who they really are. That's the place you want to get to. Yeah, that's the place you want to get to.
That's great.
And then you can also feel like I always tell people, pay attention to how your body's feeling. If your stomach is feeling weird, or your chest or your throat is tight when you're talking with someone, and you're just not feeling like you're not feeling good about what you're hearing, gosh, that's something you don't want to miss. That is a big message that's happening. So just pay attention to how you're feeling too. And if you know, then you can say, like, am I believing them? Do I feel like they're being truthful with me? That kind of thing. So, okay.
Jodi, do you have recommendations about where people can find, you know, examples of these open-ended or behavioral questions?
Gosh, okay. So, well, I have a whole list. I guess I'm happy to share a list that is broken up by categories. So, like, it will say self-starter as a header, and then I have a grouping of questions that you'd ask to see if someone's a self-starter. And so I guess I'm happy to I could share that. Or frankly, you could probably Google behavioral based questions, and I'm sure I haven't done that actually, but I'm sure that things will come up on if you're just searching online these days. Probably pretty sure. But if it would be helpful, I'm happy to share the like questions that I use or would give my clients.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great. That'd be great. It looks like people are interested in that for sure. One other quick question that came in, a good one. How do you gracefully end an interview if you know that it's wrong?
So I would say something like, thanks so much for your time. We're at the beginning stages of our process right now. We have other people we're seeing and vetting. We'll get back to you in the next 7 days and let you know if we're going to bring you back for a next round. I just usually, yeah, I just, I don't usually say it in the moment unless there's something obvious where I can say, gosh, if you want that, this is not that job. You're never going to see that with us. I don't think we're really tracking here. If it's obvious, then I would say it in the moment. Otherwise, I think it's good just to like end it nicely, because they're going to be, their experience with you is going to carry forward in one way or another. They're going to talk about they had a bad experience or they had a good experience. So you might as well let them have a good experience, think favorably of you, and you can always follow up with a letter or a phone call or an email saying, thanks so much for your time. We decided to move forward in another direction. We decided to move forward with other people. Best of luck to you, you know, whatever. That's my suggestion. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So one question at the beginning here, I just want to hit some of the questions from the beginning so we're not running out of time before we get to them. I think one question was, where do you find people, right? I think
always a big one.
Yeah. So some people are using job boards. Yep. Sometimes, I mean, it really depends on the type of position that you're trying to fill. Again, one size does not fit all. So some of the job boards out there could really work for you. I've heard Indeed mentioned and Craigslist. Yep. Some of those boards could work. Like for example, one of the businesses was hiring drivers. And what we've found as far as hiring drivers is being in front of like the workforce centers, veterans groups, some of the communities that your current drivers on staff are involved in their personal lives. If you're, as a business, putting some attention into those communities where your current drivers who are successful are interacting, that's a good place for finding other drivers that might be like-minded. Because the whole objective then for retaining on that back end is the more you can create community within your organization, the more people feel like sticky, engaged, they matter, they like coming to work, it's fun, whatever the job is, or they know that they have a place, or they know that they have a friend that they can talk to at work, and that's fun for them. The more you're creating community, it's just the best retention tool, frankly, almost more than anything else these days, because look at our lives, we're so individualized. I mean, that's why social media is so popular and big right now. People are just like craving for community of some sort. So as small businesses, I think we could be really good at creating community within our organizations. And that means a lot to people these days. So anyway, so looking at your trade industries or associations, going into associations and looking for or putting the word out. Sometimes there's job boards in an association. I'm kind of a fan of not, I mean, you might want to use the job board, but then you want to like show up or put a message out to the membership committee person and say, gosh, I'm looking for someone to fill this kind of a role. Have you met any of our members that you think might be a good fit? Or, you know, you're always kind of like eyes and ears open to talent. I mean, everybody's looking for talent. So the more focused effort you have in directing your attention to places where most likely people are going to be that you'd want to hire. That's more effective for like the more complex kind of positions that one might have. People most likely aren't going to be responding to a job board ad. It's just not really how people find jobs these days. So LinkedIn is a really great resource to find the underemployed kind of person. So someone who's already successful, and sometimes you can see that on LinkedIn. Sometimes people's LinkedIns aren't updated because people are working and they're not really, like, unless they're thinking, I'm going to look for a new job. Sometimes that LinkedIn profile can sit there and look just like it looked when they first set it up years ago. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you go into like industries that would have similar types of positions and look and see, well, who's working there now? And is there somebody in a position where, gosh, they might be a little underemployed. Maybe they won't see the upward mobility. And then just doing specific reach outs to them. They feel special. People are not offended by that kind of a thing. I often would go into it with thinking that you're going to be courting. So it's not going to be like you make one phone call and they're going to be like, oh, great. Yes, absolutely. I want to leave a job. No, it's like you're thinking about it courting. You're developing a relationship, learning a little bit more about them. You can, as you're learning more about them, you're listening for, oh, are they stopped? Is there a gap? So it can be a longer process, but the end result is worth it. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, rarely are people going to respond to just like a job posting, and it depends on the type of job that you're looking to fill. So are there specific questions around that, or is that helpful at all? I mean, I think when you're looking to hire, you put it everywhere. Like if I'm talking with my network, or I'm at an event and I'm overhearing, if I'm at the theater and I'm hearing people talk about something and I'm looking to fill a position, I just turn around and start a conversation, offer my card if they're interested, like because you never know where you're going to find that right person. So eyes and ears open, like little antenna, and wherever you are, you're putting it into the world. I'm not seeing any questions come in, so I'm just right now I'm assuming that I'm hitting something that you were hoping I would be hitting.
Yeah. Trey, did you have a question? I saw you unmuted yourself.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry, this is Liana from Open Mind.
Okay.
Is there, and I realize that there's a lot of different industry types on the phone, but is there sort of a standard if we decide that a headhunter is the way that we want to move forward, in particular with something like a more senior position and a more selective type process? Is there like a sort of general amount that is, standard? Because from what we've worked with in the past, it just seems so high that I'm wondering if there's, room for negotiation, and how that kind of world works.
Yeah, gosh, there's like anything and everything out there as far as recruiters go. You could have, sometimes there's room for negotiation, sometimes there's not. So the important thing is to find someone that you think really is listening to you and that you think you can really work with, and that they're going to go and put some muscle into it in actually sourcing and finding and then vetting candidates. I mean, there are some recruiters that you'd hire and they put jobs out on the job board and then they sift through the resumes or the responses that come in, and they're not actually going out and like courting and vetting who's available with technical skill. Then we're going to interview for behavioral traits, and we're going to go out and look under the rocks and find those people. Like, I guess, my opinion, I'm slightly biased here just because I've seen a little bit of everything that goes on out there. And I always think, I don't know why you'd want to pay someone just to put a job posting out there for you and to pass you any resume that comes in. I mean, you want them to do the work of screening and vetting and giving you a slate. And so there are recruiters that I think are better at that part of it than others. And I would say that's true for any level of position. Any level of position, you want that. I mean, if they're just going to be putting a job on the job board, you could just do that yourself or hire an intern to do that, you know, that kind of thing. So I'd interview your recruiters. And again, like sometimes you can do, like we do flat fees and we do percentages of hire, and typically we just work it out with the organization and see what their preference is. So sometimes a flat fee is nice because then you know what you're budgeting. And sometimes you can even do payment plans. So it's not just a lump sum, which can be challenging for a small business. But I will say that it can be worth it. It can be worth it because of the vetting that is done. If they really are going out and sourcing for you and then vetting in a good way, it's worth it, because if you're going to get that productive person you're going to get 800% out of instead of 100%. I mean, that's the reason why you'd hire an outside firm. They can often be more neutral, and sometimes people tell us things. One thing that we do is recruiting, so that's where I'm speaking from here, but sometimes candidates in an interview will tell us things that they would never say to you. So it's just a different kind of relationship. So happy to talk more about that, Liana, offline if you want to talk more about how to screen or what you should look for when hiring a recruiter. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
I was going to mention, sure. I was going to mention those assessment tools. And again, I would say it depends on the type of position that you're trying to fill, but I think there are some assessments where you can like assess the job. So it would help you create, what is it that we're really trying to fill, so we know who we're looking for. And so it can be called a job pro. I mean, some of the ones that I've used that I think are really good are Predictive Index. The Caliper tool, I think, is really good. So you can have a job pro, job spec, and then you're having the individuals also take the assessment, and you can see where's the gap. Is this a match? Is it not a match? Again, a tangible, whenever we can make this stuff more tangible, I think we have eyes wide open and we can see better what it's easy to miss if we're just doing things verbally or in our heads. So I'm just a fan of making things tangible so our eyes can see what we're writing. So those assessments are handy for that. I know with some of our transportation clients, they've used assessments for their drivers because that was a easy thing to measure, and then they can just have, like, that's part of their screening process now, is those assessments. But otherwise, like, smart people, if you're hiring people with the same core values that fit into your organization and the right behavioral traits and those just the intrinsic behaviors, then smart people can learn usually the job part of it. And so the other place that I think is helpful to use assessments is on the back end. So you can see, well, who is this hire that I'm making? I've already decided that I think you're the one. And now I'm going to learn more about you. I'm going to learn what your motivators are, what your value to the team is, where your strengths lie, how you prefer to be communicated with. So I can integrate you more, get you involved, and like train and assimilate you in a way that you like to learn. So, and there's a lot of good ones out there. The common ones that we have had a lot of success with are the Insights Discovery and the EQI Baron, which is emotional intelligence. So for professional leveled, executive level, those are the two that we usually go to, that we've had just like I said, a lot of success with those two tools. So those are some ideas. there's a million assessment tools out there. They're all saying the same thing pretty much. It's just a matter of how easy are they to use and how much effort do you have to put into understanding the information you're seeing. So the two that I mentioned are like easy. Okay, so we're kind of coming to our wrap time here already. Is there anything that we haven't covered that someone was really hoping we would talk about? Anything?
Jodi, this is Trey. I actually do have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So speaking about the assessment tools, and then I know earlier we were kind of talking about the personality tools as well. Is there I guess in your experience, have you seen where one versus the other works better as far as asking like the situational based questions versus determining a candidate's capability based on personality, or kind of using a combination? What's your experience?
So are you asking, does one assessment tool work better in combination with behavioral questions? Did I understand what you were saying correctly?
Yeah, basically, is there one or the other, or a combination of both, that seems to work best in your experience? So in other words, assessment tools or personality tools, are they better than situational based questions, or is there a combination you use?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't think, so I like to have a well-rounded process, and I think that you're going to get the best outcome if you do too. Excuse me. So I think, you know, it's easy to see the technical skill one has, where they've worked, what they've done, where they went to school, like that tangible stuff. So you're screening, do they have the right like skill set? Then you're interviewing for who is this person? And that's your behavioral based questions. What are your values? How do you operate? Are you a self-starter? Are you resourceful? You know, you're interviewing for that first. And then second interviewing, like you're checking for consistency. Is my experience the same with you? And now, do I like you? Do I see you fitting in here? What questions do you have? Second interview. And then then I think there's the place to do the assessment. Unless you're doing the job pro on the front end for like driver positions, then I push that a little earlier in the process. But for other types of positions where you're not using that job pro, then I assessment at the end of the interview process, because you already know, yeah, I'm going to invest in this person. I'm curious. I think this is the person, or the final two. And then I'm going to look and see what other information can I see? Because those assessments, when you're using assessments in the interview process, they're meant to have you ask better questions of the individual in front of you, so you can see how things play out. It's not necessarily that they would be good or not good in the job. I mean, if it could tell you that, that'd be awesome, but that's not the reason to use them. It won't tell you that. Does that help? Is that answering?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely gives me a better idea of the breakdown, or the way that you're thinking about that. I guess really at this point, it's that I don't have a very good process, and so I don't really understand, you know, how I want to organize that. I don't know if you have anything or any resources that you could recommend on kind of a process or breaking it down better for more efficient interviews.
I guess I could share some documents that I even brought into our emerging leader class this last week, because we just had our HR session. So I brought in some samples, and I could share that with, you know, with this group too, with the emerging leader group as a whole. Maybe that would help. So you could see some of the
wonderful
that I was talking about. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Happy to do that. I can get those to Laura Lee after.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it seems like there are a couple, the list of questions and a couple of the resources would be fantastic to share with others.
Great.
So we are just about at the end of our time here. And I wanted to let you know, I will follow up with a group email to share those resources, and I will CC everyone. I think that there might be one or two questions in the chat box that we didn't quite get to, but we can include those in the email as well, just to make sure that we're fully wrapped up. And I encourage you all too to keep your eye on the iConnect discussions. There's a lot of really great conversation around HR issues, hiring, staff engagement, things like that. So definitely keep an eye there.
Great.
Jodi, I really appreciate your time. I think that this was a fantastic conversation. And I did record it, so I will make that available as well on iConnect. People can come back and reference it. Yeah, and let's keep the conversation going. So any final words from you, Jodi?
Thanks for participating, everyone. I mean, the more we share, the more we learn, the better we can be. So I appreciate your participating today. I look forward to staying in touch.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Talk to you all soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.